So, I just have to ask you all, was I completely out of line? Because honestly, I'm still reeling, and I can't wrap my head around it. Imagine, I picked up the phone, just making a casual call to my son, Michael, and his girlfriend, Sarah, who I thought was still his girlfriend, by the way. And I asked, as any mother would, "So, when's the big day? When are we finally going to celebrate your wedding?" And the response I got back, so flippant, so utterly dismissive, it still makes my blood run cold. "Oh, we got married yesterday." Yesterday. Can you believe it? My own son, my only son, got married, and I, his mother, found out over a casual phone call, a full day after the fact. Tell me, truly, what would you have done in my shoes? Because I'm still questioning every single move I made after that moment. Let me take you back to the beginning, before this bomb dropped on my life. My son, Michael, he's always been a good kid. Quiet, a bit reserved, but always respectful, always loving. We've always had a close relationship, or so I thought. Ever since his father passed away almost 10 years ago, it's just been the two of us, a really tight-knit unit. I dedicated my life to raising him, making sure he had everything he needed, emotionally and materially. He went off to college, got a good job in graphic design, and eventually met Sarah. Now Sarah. She's a different story altogether. From the moment Michael introduced her, I had a feeling. Not a good feeling, mind you. She was striking, I'll give her that. Tall, blonde, always impeccably dressed, but there was something in her eyes, a calculating glint that always put me on edge. She was very charming on the surface, always complimenting me, always saying the right things, but I could never shake the feeling it was all an act. Michael, bless his heart, he was absolutely smitten. He saw the world in her, and I, as his mother, wanted to be happy for him. I really did try. Their relationship progressed quickly. They moved in together after about a year of dating, and that's when I started to see the subtle shifts in Michael. He started calling less, visiting less. When he did come over, he'd be distracted, constantly checking his phone, almost as if he was on a timer. Sarah rarely joined him. She always had an excuse: too busy, not feeling well, a work deadline. I understood that people get busy, but it felt like she was actively trying to distance Michael from me, from his family. My sister, my closest confidant, even noticed it. She'd say, "He's not the same Michael, Mary. He seems controlled." I'd brush it off, trying to be optimistic, telling myself it was just the honeymoon phase, that he was building his own life. Then came the engagement. Michael called me, ecstatic, telling me he'd proposed, and Sarah said yes. I congratulated them, of course, genuinely happy for my son's happiness. But even then, there was a tiny prickle of concern. He didn't ask if I was happy, or if I liked the ring, or if I was excited for them. It was more of an announcement, almost as if he was seeking my approval after the fact. I asked about the ring, about how he proposed, trying to engage, trying to be the supportive mother I always was. He gave short answers, almost vague, and then quickly passed the phone to Sarah. She gushed about the proposal, about how much she loved Michael, about how excited she was to be a part of our family. Again, the charm offensive. I congratulated her warmly, asked if they had thought about dates, venues, anything. She just laughed and said, "Oh, we haven't even begun to think about all that. We're just enjoying being engaged for now." Weeks turned into months, and then months turned into a year. No wedding planning. No discussions. Nothing. Every time I brought it up to Michael, he'd deflect, saying they were busy, or that Sarah wanted to wait until they saved more money, or that they just weren't in a rush. I found this incredibly odd. Sarah always seemed to be very meticulous and organized, and frankly, she came from a well-to-do family. Money wasn't an issue for them. It felt like she was deliberately dragging her feet, or perhaps, keeping something from me. I decided to try a different approach. I invited them both over for dinner, hoping a relaxed setting would open up a conversation. I cooked Michael's favorite meal, set the table beautifully, and really made an effort. Sarah was polite, even charming, but again, whenever I gently steered the conversation towards wedding plans, she'd subtly change the subject, or Michael would jump in with a distraction. It was like they had a silent pact. I felt a growing sense of unease. My son, who used to confide everything in me, was now a closed book when it came to his relationship with Sarah. One evening, about 18 months after their engagement, I was talking to Michael on the phone. Just a usual chat, asking about his day, his work, how he was doing. And then, I decided to just go for it, directly. "So, Michael," I said, trying to keep my voice light, "it's been quite a while since you two got engaged. Have you started thinking about a wedding date yet? I'd really love to help with the planning, you know. I have so many ideas for you both." There was a brief silence on the other end, and then I heard a muffled voice in the background, which I immediately recognized as Sarah's, saying something I couldn't quite make out, but it sounded urgent, almost a warning. Then Michael came back on, a little flustered. "Oh, Mom, you know Sarah and I are just taking our time. There's no rush." I pressed a little. "But honey, a year and a half? People usually set a date by now. Is everything okay?" He quickly reassured me everything was fine, they were just really focused on their careers, and the conversation ended abruptly. A few weeks later, I was having coffee with my sister. I was expressing my concerns about Michael and Sarah, about the lack of wedding plans, about the distance I felt from my son. My sister, always the pragmatic one, suggested I just call them and ask point blank. "What's the harm?" she said. "The worst they can do is say they haven't decided. But at least you'll know where you stand." She was right. I needed to know. The uncertainty was eating at me. So, that's exactly what I did. I picked up my phone, took a deep breath, and called Michael's number. Sarah answered, which was unusual. She usually let Michael answer. Her voice was bright, almost overly cheerful. "Hi, Mary. How are you?" she chirped. I returned the greeting, then, trying to sound as casual as possible, I said, "Hi, Sarah. I was just calling to chat with Michael, but since I have you on the phone, I just wanted to ask. When are you two planning on getting married? Have you set a date yet? I'm so excited for you both, and I'd love to know what your plans are." There was a pause, a very noticeable, heavy pause. And then she laughed, a short, almost brittle laugh. And then she uttered those words that still echo in my nightmares. "Oh, Mary, we got married yesterday. Didn't Michael tell you?" I felt the blood drain from my face. My hand started shaking, clutching the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. "Yesterday." I managed to croak out, the word barely a whisper. "You got married yesterday? And Michael didn't tell me? You didn't tell me?" Sarah's voice, which had been so light, now took on a defensive edge. "Well, it was just a small, intimate ceremony. Very spur of the moment, you know? We just decided last week. And we wanted to keep it low-key. Michael was going to tell you, I'm sure. He just probably didn't get around to it yet." My mind was racing. Spur of the moment? After a year and a half of engagement and no plans? A small, intimate ceremony that didn't include Michael's own mother? It was a lie. I knew it in my gut. It was a deliberate exclusion. I felt a surge of emotions, disbelief, hurt, anger, betrayal. But mostly, a profound sadness. My son, my only child, got married, and I wasn't there. I wasn't even told. I wasn't a part of one of the most significant moments of his life. And to find out like this from his new wife, a day later, as if it were some trivial piece of gossip. It was a slap in the face. A public humiliation, even if only to me. "No," I said, my voice now firm, "Michael did not tell me. And Sarah, how could you both do this? How could you get married without telling me, without inviting me? I'm his mother." Her tone hardened. "Mary, we're adults. We can make our own decisions. We didn't want a big fuss. And honestly, we didn't think it was that big of a deal. We're married now, that's all that matters." That's all that matters. Those words stung more than anything else. It implied that my feelings, my role as his mother, simply didn't matter. I felt a cold fury building inside me, a feeling I rarely experienced. I wanted to scream, to cry, to demand answers. But something in me snapped. The years of subtle slights, the increasing distance, the veiled disrespect. It all coalesced into a sharp, undeniable realization. Sarah didn't want me in Michael's life, and she had effectively succeeded in pushing me out. And Michael, my sweet, kind Michael, had let her. He had chosen her over me, over our bond, over common decency. I ended the call, my hands still shaking. I immediately called Michael. He answered, sounding a little nervous. "Mom? Everything okay?" he asked. "Everything okay?" I repeated, my voice dripping with ice. "Michael, your wife just told me you got married yesterday. Is this true?" He hesitated. A long, agonizing hesitation. Yeah, Mom. We did. We were going to tell you." "Were you?" I cut him off. "Because Sarah just told me. A full day after it happened. And you weren't going to tell me, because you chose not to invite me. You chose to exclude me. Your own mother." He started to stammer, to make excuses. "Mom, it was a small thing. We didn't want a big wedding. We just went to the courthouse." "The courthouse?" I scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. "And you couldn't spare 5 minutes to tell me beforehand? You couldn't send me a text, an email, a carrier pigeon? You just let me call, innocently asking about wedding plans, only to be ambushed with the news that it's already happened." The hurt in my voice was palpable. "Michael, I've given you everything. I raised you, I supported you, I loved you unconditionally. And this is how you repay me? By shutting me out of your life's most important moment." He tried to apologize, to explain, but his words felt hollow. He kept saying it wasn't personal, that they just wanted to avoid drama, that they knew I'd want a big wedding, and they didn't. That was the final straw. It wasn't about the size of the wedding, it was about the deliberate omission, the disrespect. It was about being treated as if I were a stranger, an inconvenience. It was about Sarah's influence, clearly designed to sever my connection with my son. So that's the situation I was in. My son, the center of my world, had just married the woman who I believed was systematically alienating him from me, and they had done so in secret, excluding me completely. My heart was shattered, my mind was racing with conflicting emotions. I felt humiliated, betrayed, and utterly lost. I had to make a choice. Do I confront them head-on, demand an explanation, and risk further alienating Michael? Or do I swallow my pride, pretend everything is fine, and let this blatant disrespect stand? Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have let it go, or would you have fought for your place in your son's life? I thought about it for days, sleepless nights filled with tears and a crushing sense of loss. My sister came over, my friends called, and I recounted the story to them. They were all equally appalled, equally supportive, but their advice varied. Some said to give Michael space, that he'd eventually come around. Others said I needed to stand up for myself, that this was a pattern of disrespect that would only worsen if I didn't address it. I finally decided that I couldn't let it go. Not this. This wasn't just a minor disagreement, this was a fundamental breach of trust, a deeply painful betrayal. I decided that if Michael and Sarah wanted to treat me as if I didn't exist, then maybe, just maybe, I needed to show them what that truly felt like. A few days later, I received a text message from Sarah. It was a photo of her and Michael, arm in arm, smiling, holding what looked like a marriage certificate. The message simply said, "Happy to finally be Mrs. Smith. We'll let you know when we have a celebration, if we do." The audacity, the sheer, unmitigated gall. It was a final, triumphant jab. She wasn't just rubbing it in, she was asserting her dominance, her victory in pushing me out. That photo, that message, was the catalyst. It solidified my decision. I took a deep breath, composed myself, and typed out a response. Not to Sarah, but to Michael. I sent him a long, heartfelt message, detailing all the ways I felt hurt and betrayed, not just by the secret wedding, but by the slow, insidious distancing that had led to it. I reminded him of our bond, of the sacrifices I had made, of the unconditional love I had always given him. And then, I laid out my boundary. I told him that while I loved him dearly, I could not, and would not, accept being treated with such disrespect. I told him that I needed time, space, to process this profound hurt. And until he and Sarah were willing to acknowledge the pain they had caused and genuinely apologize for it, I would be stepping back. I told him I would not be attending any celebrations, if they ever decided to have one, nor would I be engaging with them until I felt they truly understood the gravity of what they had done. I ended the message by saying I hoped, one day, we could repair our relationship, but that the ball was in their court. I made it clear that this wasn't an ultimatum, but a necessary step for my own emotional well-being. I didn't receive a response for several days. I expected anger, defensiveness. Instead, I received a short, terse message from Michael. "Mom, I'm sorry you feel that way. We're just trying to live our lives." No apology, no understanding, just a dismissal of my feelings. It confirmed everything. Sarah had her hooks in him, and he was choosing her completely. It broke my heart all over again, but it also solidified my resolve. I kept my word. I stopped calling. I stopped texting. I stopped inviting them over. My friends and family were confused, concerned. I explained the situation, and while some questioned my approach, most understood. They saw the pain I was in. Weeks turned into months. Holidays came and went. Michael didn't call for Thanksgiving, for Christmas. Not even a birthday message. It was a silence that screamed louder than any argument ever could. Sarah, I heard through the grapevine of mutual acquaintances, was enjoying her new status as wife, constantly posting photos of their seemingly perfect life on social media. Photos that conspicuously never included any of Michael's family. Then, about 6 months after the secret wedding, I received an unexpected call from Michael. His voice was subdued, almost hesitant. "Mom," he said, "can we talk? Really talk?" I braced myself. "What is it, Michael?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. He confessed that things weren't as perfect as they seemed. He said Sarah was constantly picking fights, that she was controlling every aspect of his life, from his friends to his finances. He said he felt isolated, lonely. He admitted that he'd started to see how much of a mistake it was to let her dictate his relationship with me. He admitted that he'd been wrong, terribly wrong, to exclude me, and that he deeply regretted it. He sounded genuinely remorseful. He told me Sarah had been furious when he even suggested inviting me to their small ceremony. She had convinced him that I would make a scene, or try to take over. He finally understood that she had deliberately manipulated him to push me away, and that he had allowed it, for fear of losing her. He realized that in trying to please her, he had lost himself, and nearly lost me too. He said he missed me, missed our calls, our dinners, our easy conversations. He wanted to fix things. He wanted his mom back. It wasn't an easy conversation. There were tears, from both of us. I told him how deeply he had hurt me, how much I had mourned the loss of our closeness. But I also told him I loved him, that I always would. I told him that an apology wasn't enough, that he needed to show me, through his actions, that he was truly committed to rebuilding our relationship, and that he wouldn't let Sarah come between us again. He promised he would. Over the next few months, Michael started to rebuild. He called regularly, he visited, sometimes alone, sometimes with Sarah, but when Sarah was there, he made a visible effort to include me, to engage with both of us. It was awkward at first, especially with Sarah. She was polite, but clearly uncomfortable. There was a coldness there, a tension that was palpable. I never received an apology from her, not a genuine one anyway. But I made it clear to Michael that while I wasn't going to pretend to be best friends with his wife, I was willing to be civil for his sake. The whole ordeal taught me a profound lesson about boundaries, about self-respect, and about the sometimes painful reality of family dynamics. It wasn't the wedding itself that was the problem, it was the deliberate exclusion, the disrespect, the clear attempt to sever a bond that had been sacred to me. Michael and I are slowly, carefully, rebuilding our relationship. It's not the same as it was before, and maybe it never will be, but there's a new understanding, a new appreciation for each other. As for Sarah, well, she's still Michael's wife. And I suppose I just have to accept that. But I've learned that my peace of mind, my self-worth, matters more than maintaining a superficial harmony at the cost of my own dignity. So, that's my story. A wedding I never knew about, and the painful journey that followed. What a mess, right? If you were on my side, if you think I did the right thing by standing up for myself, please like this video. And if you have your own stories of difficult family situations, or if you have any advice for me, please subscribe for more stories like this and share your final thoughts on this whole ordeal in the comments section below. I'll see you all in the next story.